whatever I'm
Cool.
trying to say. I'm gonna go away because I'm useless today. So I'm in the background. Yushmita and Stefano, this is your show.
Awesome.
Bye,
Hey,
Magda.
hi everyone. So as you know, today's topic is on networking. So before I introduce our special guest, Stefano, I would like to start with a small anecdote. And this is my first lesson on networking, which actually came from my mother. So there was this time when we were all younger, that my sister was traveling alone, and she had to come back by bus from the airport, and then she got into the wrong bus and her cell phone died on the way. So there was no way to reach her, but just before it died, she told my parents where she's getting off, and then getting onto another bus. So my mother happened to know the regional transport officer, and what she did was she called him up, got him to track not only which bus but also who the conductor on that bus was, and then called him up and got him to share and then sorry yeah, called the conductor up and said, okay, my daughter's on this bus, can you please give her the phone so that I can reach her? And then my sister is sitting in this random bus, and you can imagine like how crowded it might be given what you've heard of like the Indian population. Bangalore is quite populated now. So and then he's like speaking in Kannada and saying who is my, and saying out my sister's name, and then she's like, that's me. And then so that's how my mom got connected to my sister. And I was just like, wow, this is something here. Because, and I think the lesson that I learned from that was it's not necessarily how many connections you have, but what you do with that, like how you create an opportunity to get to where you are. And using that, I'd like to introduce Stefano, who is one of our learners, because okay, why I used that was because Stefano, one thing that really stands out about him is creativity, and how he holds it so dearly to himself and uses it everywhere and to shine his light. So Stefano, if you'd be so kind to introduce yourself.
Well, thank you so much for that introduction. First off, I always love to be a part of something incredible with an organization that I truly wholeheartedly respect. And so thank you so much for having me here. I'm not by any means an expert in networking. I am not a consultant in networking. I don't offer services to help people with networking. The reason I'm here is because of the experiences, the positive experiences that I've had in networking. And so, well, first off, my name is Stefano Lollo, and I am the Chief Creative Officer of a company called Papillon MDC, and we're a executive coaching and leadership development company. So of course, that's the link to Coacharia. And when I think of my journey, and I think of the role that networking has played in my journey, it's undeniable that I would likely not be where I am now if it weren't for networking, and networking in its most, I guess you could say, authentic of forms. And I think that's an important distinction, because I think we were talking about this earlier. When some people think of networking, they get this kind of a strange feeling. Some people kind of really gravitate towards this idea of networking, and some people kind of feel very uncomfortable. And so that's really why I'm here. And it's really a topic that I see really interlaced with creativity, which is what gets me so excited, actually. Yeah. I can ramble on, so I'm going to leave pauses so you can actually interject.
No, please do, because when you're rambling, you're making a lot of sense, and I love it.
Well, thank you.
So the last time, just FYI to our audience, Stefano and I connected earlier last week just to get to know each other a little bit and have sort of an understanding of what we're going to speak about today. And Stefano had a very interesting perspective to bring on networking. So I'm going to repeat a few of the questions that I asked so that we can so that you have the opportunity to share that with the audience. So to start off, you shared something very beautiful and very simple about what your idea of networking is. So if you could please define what networking is to you.
Absolutely. I mean, when I think of networking, and I think you'd ask me, what does networking mean to you? And so if we were in a coach setting, I would probably be asked, what's a word you think of when you think of networking other than networking? And to me, that word that really just appears in my mind instantly is human. I think if networking isn't done in a human way, then it's not networking, it's something else. It's some form of advertisement, it's artificial intelligence. I don't know what we want to call it, but to me, networking is one of the most human things that we can do. And in fact, I think it's why we're struggling sometimes when we are in the middle of a crisis where we're quarantined. I think this is, why we struggle with it, because as humans, we're social beings. And so it's a very difficult thing to be told, well, now you need to kind of separate, even though it's just a physical separation. We have issues with that, I think. And because we maybe aren't at the level where we feel that technology maybe is aligned with what we would get with face-to-face. Of course, there's other people that think it's a great way. And so I'm kind of like, I'm on the fence there. I love face-to-face networking, but I also feel there is great power that comes with the technology. Because of course, you and I are connecting. We live very far from each other. We wouldn't otherwise probably have this opportunity to connect. Now we can. And we can do it in a very human way. We could see each other, we could hear each other, you could see my expressions. And I think that's what makes it special. That's where the human comes in. And when people forget to add the element of human to technology, you're left with just technology. And so that's really where I stand on it. And of course, to tie in the creativity bit, to be human is to be creative. And I see those as interlaced as well. So of course, now you basically, if we had a Venn diagram, you'd have basically networking, human, and creativity really just all overlapping. And right in the center, that's the sweet spot. If you can achieve that, then I think you were going to get really incredible things happening. And to your point, Nishmita, we were talking before, not just transactions. I think it has to go beyond transactions. If you're looking for transactions, you could probably rely on technology. You could probably rely on automated something, I'll give you a visual. I'll give you a visual
please.
of what I think if I had to come up. And of course, you could tell I love to cut out things. I love props. So if I had to basically show a visual for what to me networking meant, it would actually be this right here. The Michelangelo, this idea of connection. And if there's no this, then it's not really networking. It's just an email. It's just communication of some form.
That's so true. And thank you so much for that visual, because something that I strongly believe in is show, not tell. And I think, but as you were speaking, something that really, that was coming to my mind was about how technology, it's so interesting with it. Initially, when we were getting more used to it, it was something that was distancing us, and it started feeling like such a lonely place. But today, it's such a powerful tool to connect. And we spoke a little bit about this previously as well, how we can use social media to change it to social networking, which brings me to my next question. I've written it down so that I save on words. But so communication is two-way. And, now we're talking about how we use virtual platforms to bring this connection. So how do you do that for to speak to your audience in a way that they want to listen, and B, give your audience the opportunities to share with you and to tell you what they are thinking?
Mm-hmm. Those are great questions. And in fact, those are very human questions. You're bringing in that element of human. And so I think for starters, I think we need to, and I love that you mentioned this difference between social media and social networking. Where social media started, I think, is not where it is now or where it's headed. I think it started as a way to just share personal things. And that puts the emphasis on yourself. And so I think when social media started, clearly we were seeing photos of what people are eating and where they're going. And the arguments against that are that sometimes it can seem like we're just posting these picture perfect worlds that really don't allow for much interaction, but are basically just a stage to show off. And I think we need to go beyond that. And so the first thing I do is, I mean, clearly I have a bit of a bias here. I'm in the world of helping people, of coaching. And so I'm not in the business of twisting anybody's arm to get them to work with me or for them to purchase a service from me. I really feel people need to be at the right place at the right time in order to basically work with me. And I wouldn't want it any other way. So the first thing I do is I try to really put out content that is bringing value without really a hidden agenda. I mean, clearly there's nothing wrong with wanting to sell your service, with wanting to sell some form of product or some form of value that you're going to offer your audience. But at the same time, I always say you need to picture interactions that humans would have, and would it make sense to behave the way we sometimes see people behaving on social media or on platforms like LinkedIn to sell. So if you met someone for the first time, would they state their name and instantly start diving into the service that they're looking to sell and instantly try to get you onto a phone call so that they can sell their service? It would probably feel a little awkward. So when I'm looking to reach out to my audience, the first thing that I'm doing is I'm really just trying to highlight things that are relevant to my audience, and not to everybody in the world, but to the audience where I feel I have some value to offer. So I first off stop thinking of the mass market approach. And the minute you stop thinking mass market, suddenly you're not trying to accumulate likes and followers, because you're just like, if I have 100 people that really love what I'm doing, well, that's enough. And I am enough. If you're looking to grow numbers, I mean, I don't know I don't know what the intent behind that is, because, if you had 100,000 people that really don't care much about what you have to say, but just clicked follow or like automatically, does that still mean something to you? So I try not to engage on social media and post up catalogs or sales pitches. I feel like someone approaching you on the street that only had something to sell would probably look like this. Just someone showing up. I don't know if that's backwards, but it says buy from me. It would be very unnatural to have someone where you can see their intent right away. And so I don't do that on social media. Rather, what I do is I highlight pain points, things that I know that are probably, irritating, frustrating, concerning people. Of course, it doesn't always have to be bad. We can highlight also wins and good things that are going on. And generally, when you do that kind of thing, suddenly I think people can connect with it and they want to engage. It's the reason why a coach will ask a really powerful, probing question rather than just telling them something. And so I'll ask a lot of questions. Hey, what is your struggle right now? Or here's my struggle. Hey, do you have similar situations? And when the people take the time to reach out and communicate with me, I think they call it in social media posting and ghosting, which is when you post something and then you don't reply whatsoever, you become a ghost. Well, I'll actually take the time to respond. And not only will I take the time to respond, but I like to do it in as human a way as possible. So rather than someone writing a comment and just liking it or answering, I often take my device and send a voice message. I want them to hear my very human voice, and I want them to understand that there's actually a real person on the other side of this account, and I've heard you, and I'm going to speak to you, rather than just saying like thumbs up, thank you for the comment. I think people are, when they comment, they've invested a little bit of their time to tell you something there. They deserve more than, just a trigger finger like. course, we can't maybe do that with everybody that responds, but I think if we do it consistently enough, you're probably going to reflect that this is a real person offering real value. And this can definitely develop into a business relationship. There can be a transaction at some point. It doesn't always have to be because you're looking for friendship or companionship, but I believe in starting relationships first and foremost, no matter what you are doing. And I think that applies to face-to-face networking as well, actually.
That's very true. And so many things in there that like started triggering a lot of thoughts in me. I'm struggling to like focus a bit because it's, but so here, Meenakshi, hi, first of all, thank you for putting in this comment. I wanted to ask you, Stefano. So Meenakshi says, great point there, providing value to your target audience. So that brings me to ask you, what do you like when the word audience comes to you, to your mind? What do you think of it, and how did you go about deciding who your specific target audience is?
Interesting. Interesting that you highlight that, because I'm not sure if I use the word audience. I may have, but I also think that it's probably, if we look at the semantics of the word, there's probably something incorrect with using that term. To me, I think audience, I think spectators, people who are watching you. And I don't think that's, for me anyways, if I think of my own values and beliefs, it doesn't align with what I believe in. The same way when I am teaching in front of students, I don't expect to be the one lecturing and for them to sit back and just kind of download the information. I want an interaction. So maybe for me, the more appropriate word, I thought, well, what if it's not audience, what do you call it? I would say it's your tribe. Tribe or members of a community that, you know, share something in common. And so I'll be honest, it's not always easy to find your tribe on social media because the world is so wide, it's so large. And sometimes we have this tendency of feeling that we should be speaking to all. And so the first thing I do is I think to myself, well, what do I want to put out into the world? And once I figure that out, and so for me, I mean, the world, the realm of coaching and you know, the development of human potential is key. And for me, my passion, my heart, and a big part of that lies in creativity and innovation. So what I'm going to do is first off decide, what am I in a position to be speaking about? And I'll be very clear not to venture off into other topics that really aren't my domain. And so what you'll notice is you will notice a lot of people who go online and they start speaking to people about building multi-million-dollar businesses. And if you really just take some time and look up the individuals who are putting this information out there, you'll notice that often, I'd even go as far as saying more likely than not, they actually don't themselves own multi-million-dollar businesses. And often they very often have, you know, degrees in marketing, and this is their specialty. They're really great at communicating. And so for a time, I even found myself starting to speak a lot about business, and I am an entrepreneur, but at some point I also took a step back and said, wait a minute, I'm sounding a whole lot like some of the other people that are renowned for having multi-million-dollar businesses and speaking to their tribes, but I'm not in a position to be speaking about that. And I realized that there was something a little inauthentic about where I was moving to. So I moved back to what I know about. What I know about is creativity, innovation. And now, of course, I can add coaching and human development, which I believe in lifelong learning. This is always something in progress. I don't know if I'm a master in any of those. Maybe I'm a master in mastering my own creativity, but that's the value that I now offer to people. How can you do this with yours? And so I try to stay very focused. This is what I will speak about. And relevance and context are key, because if you start talking about other things, or if you start confusing your audience with things that you're showing that really don't align with your, let's say, personal brand, then you're probably going to get people wondering what you're all about. So step number one, really stay focused. And rather than seeing them as an audience, expect them to engage. So develop and design and think of your content to basically allow for that interaction. Bring them into this. Don't shut them out and say, this is all I have to show you, and I want you to sit in your seats and I want you to like. Bring them into this. You know, of course, I was going to say, do you know the band Queen? Who doesn't know the band Queen? Queen is a very clever band, or was a very clever band, when they came up with the song, We Will Rock You. Because they knew that they wanted people's participation and they wanted the audience to be part of the band for that song. So when that clapping and stomping happens, it is very difficult to sit in your seat and not want to engage and participate into that. And so I found that very clever. And I try to think, I'm going to put out content that gets people wanting to stand up and clap and stomp and participate in this, even if it deals with things that are sometimes particularly difficult that we go through in our lives. You can still have that same engagement. So I think that's rule number two. I could go on forever, but those are the two basics, I think.
Yeah, it's so interesting. You know what you said. It also brings me back to thinking about how if you're speaking, just like telling an audience, then you're just standing alone and talking to a bunch of people, right? But like when you said finding your tribe and communicating with them, then you become part of something, and then that is in itself a weird, like, I mean, it's not weird, but it's an unexpected support system, I would say, that you have where you know that you're not alone, and that like there are so many people who think like you and who think along the lines and believe in the same things that you do.
Absolutely.
I also like for everyone listening here today, somebody that when Stefano was sharing about how he speaks to his audience. I'm sorry, I'm using the word audience again, but it's just in my brain. But yeah, interacts with people. Somebody that came to my mind again was Seth Godin, because again, I'm a huge fan. And I really love Seth Godin and how he talks about everything as art. And art generally just being you expressing yourself. Even an idea is how you articulate what's going on in your brain to create that same, for want of a better word, but image in someone else's. And like, what better way to create a oneness than that, right? So I remember this time, like, once I just responded to one of his stories on Instagram, and one of his social media account whole managers responded to me. And what I loved so much was the authenticity behind it. Like, she said who she was. She didn't pretend to be Seth Godin, first of all, but you could see that they were coming from the same mindset. And it just got me so excited. And I think that is what true engagement is about. As you were speaking, you also integrated the topic of coaching. Now, so this brings me to one really like a question that I'm very curious to ask you about. So when a lot of people, when they call us and ask us about coaching, one question that they always have is, I'm just starting off. How do I reach and build a network for myself? And so it's like coaching is one bit and building a network is another. But today I want to ask you how your learnings through your coaching, like coach training journey, has impacted your networking.
Oh, wow. That's a great question. I love that. I love that you highlight, we as human beings, we love to label things. We love to organize things, kind of like these Post-its in the back. We love to kind of segment everything. And to your point, these people sometimes reach out and they're saying, well, coaching is one thing and networking is this other. And so the first step is realizing that they actually can be fused together. They're never going to be the same thing, but they can kind of like those Venn diagrams, those two circles, the overlap. For me, you know, when I started in the coaching realm, clearly I can't claim to have a career or a lifetime of coaching experience. But for me, the first step is I told myself, okay, well, I will still reach out to my audience, or to the people who are out there. Maybe they are an audience before I guess they engage with you. And then once you start to interact, they become your tribe. First thing was, let me be very authentic and not try to be something that I'm not. Not try to advertise to these people like I'm this coach who's been a coach for 20, 30 years. But really saying, guess what? My journey has led me to this. And now I am doing this. And the reason I think that, you know, I can offer value in this is because this is my story. This is where I come from. So I bring a whole lot of experience and value and knowledge from my own experiences in my past. And now I want to go forward doing this. So the first thing is, I think you need to be upfront if you're starting. And as a second step, I mean, it allowed me to now say, okay, well, I would love to learn from more coaches. And I would love to know, what is the community? What is the tribe of coaches out there? Of course, I'm affiliated to an incredible company that already does that, but I wanted to know, well, what's coaching like in India? What's coaching like in the United States, our neighbors to the south? What is it like in Europe? And it's incredible because now it's allowed me to reach out and to expand my tribe into a realm that I'm now looking to be more immersed in. And not only that, but to have access to podcasts and webinars such as this. And by the way, I always truly appreciate when companies such as Coach Area offer so much free content of value and just say, here you go. I truly believe in that. But resources like this only allow me to become an even better coach and allow my journey to be even that much more enhanced by deep knowledge with diversity and inclusion. And well, how could I have done this, let's say 30 years ago? 30 years ago, you would have had to start asking people, and you maybe would have found a handful of people, but it would have been a lot more difficult. So number one, I think, you know, jumping onto social media, researching the organizations, you know, the ICF, Coach Area, all the affiliated, and really start learning and engaging with those people. And now you have an opportunity to ask questions, but now you can also, you know, reach out to your audience and say, well, I'm really affiliated to all of these groups here because of what I'm doing. And so I think that's really the first step. If you're a coach, I think it's, you know, and especially if you're starting off, and we're talking about coaching, but it could be about anything. You're starting off, first off, I think people can see through very promotional tactics to try to just kind of, I guess, seduce people. So I really think bringing it back to being, you know, integrity, honesty, transparency, saying this is what I have, but also using these resources to dive in deeper and really expand that network of coaches, like I've done with you, like I've done with Magda and all the, I mean, I could have been a student of Coach Area and just left it at that and said, well, I'm doing this with, yes, we write each other some emails, but I said, I want to know the people associated to Coach Area. I want to understand RAM a little bit better and know a little bit more. So clearly I went onto my social media platforms and I connected with these people. You know, that was very important to me.
Yeah, I think that was one of the things that really stood out to me when we spoke the last time as well. The fact that, you know, you didn't just research about the company or read up and get a vibe of what, you know, what we stand for through our website, but you took that extra trouble to see who are the faces of this company and then go and understand a little bit more about that. That's actually very interesting and a little bit of like a tiny note that I'm going to keep for myself as well. You know, I did have a question post that, but anyway, something that I wanted to ask you also was, you know, your Instagram page is very interesting. Like I was just looking at it, and honestly, you can go on and on just looking at it. Thank you, Magda. She's posted it in there. I always love how quick she is.
She's lightning quick.
Yeah. Um, she says she's useful. You really are. But so what I wanted to ask you a little bit about was if you could share with us your journey of on social media, like a little bit about how it was when you started on it and how it goes on. Now, the reason especially why I'm doing this is because I understand that a lot of people are intimidated by it,
Hmm.
but it is actually such a powerful tool to allow people to get to know you without having the opportunity to personally interact. It's like it's this chance for you to tell your story and to really understand what it is that you stand for. So like you said, a lot of times people might fall for this opportunity of tricking and trying to use it as a mask to seduce their audience, but there is a different power when you use it to show who you really are.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I started my Instagram account specifically very similar to how many probably started Instagram. I believe I started a couple of years after the platform was launched. And I really just thought it was a great opportunity to create a form of, I guess, a photo album of some sort. And so it was just exciting because it was a photography feature. And so I was taking photos of food and like where I was going. And I think my first post ever was like a garden gnome or something, just to give you an idea of like, really, I was just having fun with it. And of course, I was in a corporate job and I was having a great time. But as the years went on, I started to realize that my values and my beliefs were no longer aligned with the company that I was working with. And so they were going through a tough time. And at some point, I basically decided to disconnect myself and basically say, I think it's time that we go our separate ways. And I walked away from there really not knowing what the future held for me, but knowing that most of my life, I focused a lot on my own creativity. And it was always a whole lot about me. You know, when we're children, we love creativity. The relationship is very simple with creativity. We love expressing ourselves. We have very little restraint. And then as we go through the educational system, something changes for some of us, and we start to repress this part of ourselves. Whereas I've always fought to keep this part very much alive. And when I was in a corporate job and I realized that I felt that I wasn't feeling fulfilled, it felt like a hole was starting to form within me. I felt empty. When I left my job, I felt free somehow. But what I recognized was that perhaps the social media that I had before me could offer me more than just a platform for me to show my creative abilities. And it was a platform where I could reach out to people and try to figure out what my next step was. And so it really gave me this platform to express myself, to show some of my abilities. And I was somewhat trying to find my way. I was trying to navigate to the next step in life. And what was incredible is I just started to post the things that I truly loved and the things that I truly wanted to accomplish and wanted to do. And I expressed this mainly in the form of art. And I started to get a lot of people, great organizations that are very well known, especially here in Canada, reaching out to me through direct messaging and saying, we would love to work with you. And I could not believe the power of what most people at the time thought was this platform for posting your meal, that I was getting people saying, we are ready to work with you. And I would say things like, okay, well, would you like to have some form of an interview or a meeting before? And they'd be like, no, we've seen your Instagram. We're ready to work with you. If you're interested, come work with us. And that's when I realized the power that came with social media. I know there's a whole lot of negative things that are also associated to social media, specifically with our youth. But I was like, wow. And it really opened up my world. And my career was creative, but now it was multifaceted, and I was doing all kinds of crazy creative things with different organizations, but I was also in a position where I could offer some value that I'd never offered before. And suddenly that hole that I was feeling, that emptiness, even though on paper I had the great job, I had I was in a leadership role, I had the promotions, that hole actually for the first time started to shrink. And so I started to realize that this platform was powerful, and not necessarily powerful because of how many likes you get or how many followers you get. And at one point when I was exclusively posting art, I had thousands of followers. But then I started to realize that my followers were often just focused on the art. And I wanted to change that. And so the first thing I did was I started to change it by making my account a lot more humanized and showing a lot more of myself and speaking a lot more to my tribe and saying, this is what I'm about. This is what I believe in. Do you feel this way? Let me know what you're thinking. And it certainly, my followers dropped because I had an artist community, and now I was speaking to a slightly different crowd. But what's important is that the people that believed in what I was doing, they stayed. And I always say the power of one silent follower that reaches out at some point is way greater than having 100K followers that probably have no idea what you do. They probably follow thousands of other people. And so it's really just developed and developed. And really, for me, Instagram started a lot of it. But I've been able to transfer a lot of the value that I'm offering on that platform to platforms like LinkedIn and to Facebook. Quite honestly, I'm on all the social media platforms, even TikTok, which some people argue is for youth, for very, very young audience. But I also believe that that's where every social media platform kind of begins, and then it expands and the world kind of adapts to it. But also, I think, well, if I can communicate something of value to youth, maybe I should be on their platform. So you won't necessarily find things that are very different than what I'm doing on other platforms, but I'm maybe speaking to a slightly younger tribe there. And I think we need to speak to them. We can't shut them out. We need to make sure that, they also understand what we're all about. These are the people of tomorrow here. They're our future. They're the people that are going to be inspiring us. So yeah, that's my take on social media. That's my journey, and it's really transformed into something incredible, but I'm very mindful of how I use it. So I always question what I'm putting up before I actually put it, because I want to make sure it stays aligned. And so, that I think is something specifically that we need to emphasize with our youth, because maybe they have a different perception of what social media is. And I wouldn't want it to tarnish their future dreams because of maybe the things that they're posting now. Magda.
Yes, hi. I have a question for you. I love how everything you're talking about engagement and positivity, and I love it, love it, love it. But there's the other side of social media and of networking. And, on the nicest way I can put it is trolls. But, we're talking about networking and how I'm not very graceful when it comes to trying to sugarcoat things. How do you disengage with people? How do you say no? Like, how, in both the social media context as well as in a virtual networking or real life networking?
Yeah.
What do you do?
That's a great question. I love it, because I am an eternal optimist at all times. And so, of course, there's this reality that there are trolls. But you know what? I've met the same trolls face to face in networking events. I've sat next to people and they ask me what I do. And as I'm explaining it, I can literally see their eyes looking somewhere else, because clearly they're not interested in whatever it is that I have to offer, or they realize that they can't sell me something. And so I often ask people, well, how would you behave if you met someone like that? So when I've been in situations like that, I didn't work very hard to continue engaging with this person. I kind of was like, okay, got it. Clearly we're not, got it. And the difference is that now we have these same trolls that can hide behind anonymity. They're still there. and sometimes they're not a 50-year-old man in a business suit. Sometimes they're little children that really don't know any better, and they're still trolls writing things. We don't know who's behind there, but suddenly people sometimes question, well, how do I deal with these people? It's the exact same way. Do you need a tough skin? Yes. So the minute I see a comment that somewhat hints at some form of like, you can feel it, your instinct can feel it, this is not going somewhere well. This person's intent is to injure or to, I don't engage, or I have no issues blocking, because now you're spreading a different kind of virus. We have a virus that we are, at this time that we're filming this, is very much present. There are other kinds of viruses that people have been spreading for years. And it's tough, but you do have to also say, okay, this doesn't feel right. And some people say, don't read your comments. What's difficult about that is if you don't read your comments, how will you know to respond to the people that are writing some great stuff? So you do need some tough skin there. You do need to have a certain filter, but I will never give the person a satisfaction of giving them a response if they're going somewhere nasty. That's what they want from me. They are looking to draw a response from you, and it's like, sorry. Kind of like if you were at a party and someone came up to you and said something really rude, I won't sit there and continue to engage. It's like, okay, and I'll walk away.
You're so much of a better person than I
am. Well, you know what? I'll be honest. What's helped me a lot is coaching. Because
I was going to ask you, how would you approach this? Because for me, yes, I don't want to engage, and I try not to engage. And I think in most cases I don't engage. But especially if you insult me or mine, or especially not even me, but someone that I care about, it's very hard for me to hold back. Like, I'm coming for you with the might of 1,000 suns.
Yeah, and you know what? And I know it may not seem this way, but I'm the same way. And I always used to say that my smile is laced with venom because I can strike. But what coaching has changed for me is in those moments, I actually start to ask myself questions and say, okay, what's happening to you right now? Oh, you're feeling angry. Clearly, what it looks like is this person is trying to injure you, and now your ego wants to engage. And I have that, and I know it sounds difficult, but somehow I'm able to do it. And people, ever since I've trained with Coach Area, people are saying, you're different. And I'm like, well, how so? And they say, even in a discussion, you don't defend yourself and try to kind of make yourself be in a position of being right anymore. You will listen. And then sometimes you'll back off just by saying, okay, the person, and they say, I can tell that actually frustrates people more than if you were kind of ready to spar here. It's like, kind of like, okay, is that the way you feel? That's fine. And people are kind of like, these people want a response. The trolls want the same response. They want you to write, hey, no, you know what? My stuff is very creative, mister, and I am this. That's what they're looking for. So I'm just like, okay. I don't even write okay. I just usually block. If it's really if it's constructive criticism, we also have to be open to that and say, like, not everybody that writes something is injuring. Some people say, well, I kind of disagree with what you wrote. That opens up a great conversation. Maybe you might want to say, hey, why don't we have a talk about that? If you're getting a sense that this person is really not gonna, one of the methods that I teach for creativity is I always say, have an uncomfortable conversation with somebody. It's a great thing. An uncomfortable conversation can lead to insights that you would not have had because that's not the life that you're living. There has to be a certain level of respect. There has to be boundaries, but it can be great for creativity. But trolls are not after that kind of thing. So I just shut them out. And
good. Okay, I'll try to be better.
Yeah, well, you know what happens though? Eventually, if your community is a very, very specific community, you'll notice that a lot of people come to your defense in there before you even have the chance to do this. And it feels good to see that you have other people there. Like, again, you're not alone. It's not you versus this person. And I always say this, a little bit of Brene Brown, but if you're not in the arena, if you're in the audience while I'm in this arena, you have no right to shout out things to me. Step into the arena and then we can have that discussion. But from up there, I'm sorry, I've got work to do.
What about on the one-on-one situation? So, we're talking about social media a lot, and it's a lot of, one-to-many communication, but especially now we can't go outside. I don't want to go outside anyway. I'll do that in my garden. But we're networking on LinkedIn, for example. And what, for me, authenticity is so important. And if I'm going to reach out to someone, I'm either just going to add them to LinkedIn, or I'm going to write a super personal message. Like there's no in between for me. But I get so many messages from people or requests with these stock standard, your business looks great, we should connect and add value to each other. And I'm like, come on. And then if I accept, because I actually do know who this person is, and I'm like, okay, unconditional positive regard, Magda, just be nice. And I accept, and then I get another stock standard response. And I'm just like, dude, come on, like, this is not how you're going to, advice.
That's a great question. That is something that I deal with every day, and I handle it slightly different than with trolls. What I actually do is when they write me that and say, and I get this all the time, we saw your account, we saw what you do, we loved it, we can help you get followers. Often I'll go into coach mode and I'll say, oh, specifically, what did you like about my account or what stood out? I guarantee you they will never answer, or it'll be just something. Sometimes I've even had people say, we stumbled upon your website. It's incredible, but we know we can help you get engagement. Please send us the URL of your website. And it's like, hold on a second, you just told me. So I think people forget, again, to me, that's this person right there. It's like, are you kidding me? Now you're insulting my intelligence. You know, but strangely, a lot of people ask me something, hey, I got this message, is it legit? And I'm like, how do you feel when you read it? Does it seem legit? Well, it just seems like they're trying to sell me something. Yeah, you know, and so for those people, I will actually often say that. And if someone sends me an automated message twice, I would say, what is it about automated messages that makes you think I may actually want to work with you? Like very coach-like, right? It's kind of like, and often you'll never hear from them again. Or I'd love to see if they have an answer. They might even say, hey, listen, sorry. You know, and I'm guilty of something here. I used to send automated messages all the time. But I used to send automated messages to people that I actually found had interesting accounts. And I would always say something like, I loved your account. I don't know you. You don't know me. Very interested. We could maybe just connect. But what I always did is when they took the time to actually hit that connect button, I send a voice message. And I want them to realize now you're hearing my human voice and I'm actually paying attention to you. I'm not automated, I'm real. And that has started some really great conversations.
But on LinkedIn, that's not always possible, right? So there's a specific question actually in the audience. Oh, is it? To send a voice invitation?
All the platforms. Oh, not the invitation. So the first invitation has to be text-based, but
so can you give us advice on how, like, what is the best way to do that in an authentic way? Because you have a number of characters you have to stay within. You might not know the person through somebody else. Like, what's the best way to do it?
This is what I usually do. Usually I actually just try to connect with people that clearly have some form of connection in terms of what I feel I can offer them, or like, oh, this makes sense, or I really found this interesting. It doesn't always have to be about a transaction. And I will try to make it very clear. Now, this moves away from a lot of the automated systems, clearly, which I know a lot of us are using. But I usually try to actually state something that's relevant to their account versus like, I noticed you worked here for this many years. Really cool. Let them know you're at, because if it's like, hello, blank, and they fill in Magda, you know, so nice to see. And it's like, you can see right through that. You just said it yourself. And I don't know why so many of us try to keep doing it. And we sometimes forget to be human. Even in Zoom calls, I've been having a lot of meetings, as most of us have. A lot of times the video is off. And I always say, like, you're a little less human than when I can see you. And I know sometimes like people don't have pants on, you know, or like they're in their environments, or they don't feel that they're, but you know what? Showing your vulnerability and just saying like, look, this is what I look like today. It'll still make it more human. I'm not saying we all have to do it, but on social media, same thing. When I get a message from someone and I don't actually see their face, it's like, to me, you could be a robot, you could be, you know, and so try, like, I wouldn't, if someone was walking down the street and they had a cloak over them, completely like a bed sheet over them, I wouldn't speak to them, right? So why is it that suddenly we're on social media, you're just going to see like an icon, a blank icon, and you expect me to start a conversation, unless clearly I know who they are. you know? So yeah. So my first approach is always just show people that you're actually interested in them versus trying to accumulate, you know, and people always ask this, oh, what if they don't want to follow me? What if they don't like what I'm putting out there? Well, then let them go. Why are you trying to twist their arm? If you're at a party and you can tell someone doesn't want to talk to you, are you just going to follow them the entire night and say, oh, but here, let me buy you that next drink here. I'm sure if you listen for 20 minutes more, you'll actually find me a really interesting person. And I'm sure we'll be like a great couple, you know, like let them go. They're not your tribe. People say, what if I post too much and they unfollow me? Then they weren't that interested. Let them unfollow you. And some people don't not follow because they're not interested. It's just they set boundaries. My Instagram I will use for personal connections, for people I actually know and not just anybody. And you need to respect that. So don't take offense to it. Because so many people I run into say like, I love everything you do. And I'm like, I've never seen a single like or a single comment, but it's like, oh, wow. I just never like anything. So it's like, okay, so suddenly that judgment, that wall goes down. I filled up this gap with these ideas in my mind, like, oh, you must not like me. We need to be okay with people not liking us. Just deal with it, you know? And I like to be liked, but not everybody will.
I think that one's a real toughie, actually, especially when you're just starting off on social media. Because I think ultimately we're all human, and we all, like, no matter how much, you know, we work on trying to validate ourselves, I think we do seek some amount of validation from outside. So
Yeah.
I do remember, like, a lot of times how I felt when I started my art page about just, I mean, even today, whenever I post something, vulnerability is a huge part of it. You know, it feels scary, but at the same time, when people resonate, it's great. And coming to that point, like, I think, like you mentioned, you know, social media always starts with a younger generation and then it works its way up a lot of times. I think, especially since we're, like, most of us here are coaches, it's about not just speaking, it's about listening, and listening to the young as well, right? So I know that a lot of people feel a little bit nervous about even venturing into social media. Like, Facebook is probably fine because it's been around, WhatsApp is fine, LinkedIn
Yeah.
is okay, you know, it's still okay, but, like, because you can at least, when you're uncomfortable with being casual, you can put on that professional front. But
Yeah.
about, like, I mean, TikTok, honestly, I haven't personally ventured in yet. But, like, stuff like Instagram, what message do you have, like, to people who are feeling a little bit scared to take that first step in and just starting their account and posting?
Yeah, I mean, that's what creativity is about. I always say creativity requires immense risk. And the minute you create anything, if you start to draw something and you put it out there, of course, you're exposing it and you're open to some form of commentary or criticism. And so it's kind of, this isn't, there's no magic to what I'm about to suggest here, but you do at some point have to kind of get your feet wet. Maybe what helps is to also start with an intention for why you're using the platform. So you mentioned some people feel very comfortable with Facebook and WhatsApp and maybe a whole bunch of other things. And so the question is, if I am now throwing myself into LinkedIn, what do I expect to come out of LinkedIn? And why am I on, not LinkedIn, but let's say Instagram. Why am I on Instagram in the first place? And so to me, when I think Instagram, I think, well, this is a great opportunity to show very visual things with some really great captions, and you have, you know, videos, that quick little videos and tips you could show. And so to me, I think that is a great platform that I can communicate quickly and efficiently to my audience. But for some people, if you don't see a match with the specific social media, even if it's popular, I think it's okay to decide that's not the platform for me. You know, so first you need to have your intent, because once you have your intent, then it's a lot easier. Because if the intent is, I would love to just have an area where maybe some of my clients or maybe some future potential clients, or maybe just family, depending again on what the intent is, to have access to some of this visual stuff that I want to show. It's a lot easier to deal with than when I don't have thousands of followers yet. But what's the intent? Was the intent to get thousands of followers, or was the intent to showcase some of the value that you have to offer, maybe to a much smaller community? And so, does it take courage? Will that feeling ever leave? No. I feel confident with creativity. I feel confident with putting things out there, but I will tell you that the inner critic, there's always a tiny little voice somewhere back here that kind of whispers in my ear, are you sure that's good enough? Or are you sure they're going to like it? And what if they don't like it? And it's something you need to kind of almost just accept is probably in some ways a good thing. Keeps you on your toes, as long as it doesn't dominate you. So you really need to, I say, if you want to start soft, keep it closed, keep your Instagram closed, private community, start posting some things. And then as you start to feel more comfortable, maybe you'll open it up to a wider audience. So maybe baby steps sometimes works.
I love that. Yay, I see
I'm making a
Magda
face
here.
and I can sense Nishmita trying to look at me all the way from India. Because, okay, my palms are sweating just so we're on the same page. Because there's this thing that I've been wanting to do that I've gotten this close to doing for months. And oh my God, I can't even say it because it's just whatever. Stefano, I just want to say thank you. Because
Thank you.
everything you're saying is resonating. It's literally having a physical reaction on me. And what I'm going to do after this is I'm going to post the thing that Nishmita's been on my case to post for literally a year.
Wow.
That I've threatened to do and have found an excuse to not do for months. And then Nishmita and I will go live on Instagram so we can chat about it and we can discuss all the different things that we learned today. Because, like, holy crap, I don't know. I feel like I'm pretty social media savvy. I feel like I have really thick skin. I'm really comfortable with people not liking me. I actually prefer it because I hate being in the middle. I love being on the extreme. So either love me or hate me. That's great because it saves all of us a lot of time. And having all of those things that I feel are, a tick in terms of the things you talked about today with networking, with social media, I've learned so much today, and it's kind of kicked my butt a little bit, and made me realize that this is an area that we're still learning, all of us, and we're still exploring. And what's kind of accepting that there's a risk, I think it's the number one thing I learned today, and being comfortable with that risk, and then just being vulnerable and doing it anyway. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, my pleasure. And I'm excited for you. And also, Nishmita, you also posted a week ago yourself singing.
Yes, I did.
And I was like, wow. And, I'm glad that you brought this up, Magda, because I think it is a healthy practice, especially for creativity, to always ask yourself, what is something that terrifies me that I've been avoiding doing? I think comfort zones are quite literally brutally lethal for people's careers, for their lives. And yet we sometimes we spend our lives slipping into a new comfort zone. And then, the great thing is being able to realize you're in one. And so to your point, Magda, if you've been able to highlight something that you've been holding back on, it'd probably be great to say every month I'm doing one thing that terrifies me. And I'll be honest with you, I don't even do this, and I should. And I think I'm going to start as of today, because we all get comfortable to a certain degree. And, I'll be honest, I'm always afraid that someone's going to call me out and say, you're a fraud. And I don't feel like a fraud. And I don't know why I worry but I always feel that I'm going to have to kind of like defend myself. And then I think, why would you think that though? And I start to realize the real enemy is me. No one's going to call you a fraud. You think someone might call you a fraud, and that's your biggest fear, right? It's kind of almost like when we dream about these things that terrify us because we know our biggest fears. And often it's my perception of a perception that I think you have about me. It's so fictional, it's so filtered that it shackles us, and we need to break through those shackles. This is why I believe in humanity and creativity and busting through these things, because I really feel that it actually solves all of humanity's problems. And I may be naive, and I bet some business people would come and say, well, there's actually a lot more to the world than that. But I believe that even where we are right today, creativity and human ingenuity can solve it all. If we were just to kind of like get on the same page, which is very difficult to do, it would be an incredible thing, you know? And so, yeah, so clearly, like, I can feel I get so excited when I start talking about this, that I can feel it running through my veins, you know? It's a good time to work out right after this, you know, like just to get on a treadmill and go.
That's so great. I so agree with that last line that you said about creativity, just solving so many problems, because it's like bothering to get down and understand what's happening rather than just blindly following what's already there and placing it. It's like making a glove that fits a particular hand, and that's
Yes.
exactly what we need today, like since forever actually, as a world.
Yeah.
I have one message to everyone who's listening. If you are thinking about starting, your social media page, or anyway, building your social presence, please do, and please reach out to us on our various platforms, because we really want to support our community and build each other up together. Like, coaches have chosen to become coaches because you want to do something out, like, and give something back, and that is powerful, and we all need to support each other. So there is an article that we've written on how we can post how we can support each other as a community, and I'm just sharing it in here. Please feel free to reach out, email us if you have ideas, or if you would like to share something with us. We're always happy to help each other grow. So
Nishmita, that's awesome. And I do want to add one tiny thing. So first of all of the links to the various social networks and things that Coach Arya is on, they're always in the footer of the emails you guys get from us. Mm-hmm. So just click on that and you'll connect. But I'm pasting one more link right now in the chat, and it's marketplace.coacharya.com. You'll all be getting an email about this later today, but to make a long story short, Nishmita talked about connecting and giving back and all that great stuff. Right now, a lot of people are struggling. We try to keep things, productive and constructive and light, but a lot of us are struggling with different things. So a bunch of coaches in our community asked, what can we do as coaches, as Coach Arya? So there's a couple of things that we are doing. One of them is this link that I put in there, marketplace.coacharya.com. We are offering coaches a place to offer their pro bono services. So if you go to that website and you register as a coach, once you get into the spot where you're adding your listing, there's for type of coaching, you can select crisis coaching and put down $0 as your fee. And then feel free to share this website with people who might need to speak to someone. So, as coaches, we can't say that we're counseling because we're not, counselors, but coaching was born out of counseling. And a lot of what we do as coaches is the kinds of benefits you would get out of counseling, but it's future focused and it's about empowerment versus exploring the past. So I highly encourage you to please register yourself as a coach on that website and share that with your networks, because, if we have the time, let's help each other.
The world needs it now more than ever.
Indeed. Yeah. Oh, Nishmita, you're muted.
Yeah, I'm still trying to learn how to manage your chat while speaking. It's like struggle. But thank you so much, Stefano, for being here, so present and authentic, and just sharing so much with us. We've all learned so much from you, and thank you to everyone who has been here and been listening and interacting through the chat. We'd love to get to know you better and keep connecting and helping each other grow.
Thank you so much to all of you. I've learned so much from Cocharia. It feels awkward to hear you thanking me for something here because I owe you so much. So thank you so much. And if anyone has questions in that chat that they don't feel were answered, if you want to put me to the test and see if I'm actually going to respond, you can write me or you can write through Cocharia. I will get back to you. I will be human and actually answer your questions here. So just putting it out there.
I've posted your Instagram link both in the chat and on the YouTube channel. So if anybody after watching this later wants to get in touch with Stefano, there's a link wherever you are.
Somewhere.
And yeah, somewhere. I think it's this. I'm still learning the whole video thing. But there's a link to Stefano's Instagram, so you can follow and engage there.
Yes.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you here next time.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everybody.